Hey, it's Dr. David Jockers, and today I'm talking about the top 7 foods to burn belly fat. We know that visceral fat, or the fat that accumulates around our organs, is extremely dangerous for our body because it actually increases inflammatory cytokines. So the fat cells themselves, this sort of fat, the visceral fat, which we can see when we have belly fat, when you have a high amount of belly fat or abdominal fat, that's a sign you have a lot of visceral fat, the type of fat that promotes inflammation in your body and also at the same time surrounds your organs and causes major problems with your organ systems. So it's a significant issue, and there's so many people walking around in society today. I mean, the latest research shows that 90% of our society is metabolically inflexible. They're not good at burning fat for fuel, which means that they're at risk for developing high levels of visceral inflammatory fat and developing chronic degenerative disease because of it. So here are the kind of foods that we want to be consuming to help us burn belly fat. Number 1 is grass-fed red meat. So when cows eat grass, they actually bioaccumulate omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3s are very anti-inflammatory. They help stimulate fat-burning mechanisms in the body. They support overall cellular health. So we want the omega-3s from grass-fed red meat. There's also a compound called CLA, conjugated linoleic acid. And CLA is amazing for helping turn up our metabolic rate. It's also great for our immune system, helps downregulate inflammation in the body, and great for helping our body burn visceral fat. So CLA in there. There's also a couple compounds, carnitine and carnosine, that are in our grass-fed red meat. And these also help with mitochondrial function. The healthier our mitochondria are in the cells of our body, the better we're going to burn fat for fuel and the less visceral fat we're going to have. And so we get the carnitine, we get the carnosine in the grass-fed red meat, so good for the body. And then of course, bioavailable protein. Protein is the most important macronutrient when it comes to creating satiety, so the ability to not have hunger and cravings and go long periods of time between meals. It also helps increase our metabolic rate as well, helps us build lean body tissue. So if we want to burn belly fat and get rid of this visceral inflammatory fat on our body, we want to eat a lot of grass-fed red meat. So that could be lamb, could be bison, could be grass-fed beef. That's going to be the most common one that you get. It could be wild game, right? Deer or antelope or anything like that. That's going to be red meat, grass-fed red meat, or wild raised in a sense, pasture-raised, or just wild game in general. Typically going to be really rich in these powerful nutrients. Number 2 is pasture-raised. This actually should be an R right here. Pasture-raised eggs. So let me correct that. So PR eggs, pasture-raised eggs. So when chickens are kept in a confined feeding lot, a CAFO organization, right? They're crammed in little pens, and they're fed genetically modified grains, and therefore their eggs are low in bioavailable nutrients and high in toxins. It's the same with cattle. When cattle are grain-fed, they're going to be lower in nutrients, much lower in all the nutrients we talked about, and high in toxins, glyphosate, pesticides, phthalates, herbicides, all these things that damage our microbiome and cause more inflammation in the body can actually increase the amount of visceral fat in our body. So we want the pasture-raised eggs. That's where chickens are able to range around. They're going to eat 20 to 25% of their diet just from grass and weeds, and they're taking in a lot of bioavailable nutrients when they do that. They're going to eat worms and insects, and then their eggs are going to be really nutrient dense. In fact, when you think about poultry, a chicken or something like that, or a duck, all the nutrients actually go into the eggs, right? So the eggs, and particularly the yolk, is the most nutrient dense part of the entire chicken. And so what's in that yolk? You got CLA again, conjugated linoleic acid, great for turning up fat burning, great for the immune system. You've got choline. Choline is one of the most important nutrients for liver health. In fact, a choline deficiency dramatically increases somebody's risk of developing diabetes and fatty liver disease, as well as neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So we got to get the choline. Pasture-raised eggs are the most nutrient-dense form of that, 150 milligrams of choline in one large egg. So choline's amazing in there. Vitamin K2 as well. When the chickens are able to eat grass and they're able to eat insects, they get a lot of vitamin D as well as vitamin K2, which helps with calcium metabolism in the body, helps pull calcium out of the bloodstream and into the bones, so you get stronger bones. It also, there's less calcium in your blood vessels where it can calcify the arteries, right, and cause atherosclerosis and arteriosclerosis, hardening of the arteries. And so we need that vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 has also been shown to help improve metabolic rate and mitochondrial function. So we have that in those pasture-raised eggs. And of course, we've also got an incredibly bioavailable protein. And we already talked about the benefits of protein. We're gonna get that in those pasture-raised eggs. We also have another powerful nutrient in there called retinol. It's fat-soluble vitamin A, one of the most important things for your immune system, your skin, your brain, your eyes, and also vitamin A, very important for metabolic health, metabolic function, and your ability to burn fat, particularly that inflammatory visceral fat that we're talking about in this discussion. So we got to get the pasture-raised eggs in there. And then also in that same category is grass-fed butter. A lot of the same nutrients that we find in pasture-raised eggs, we're going to find in the grass-fed butter. The only difference is the butter doesn't have any protein. So we get the protein in the eggs, but we're also going to get the conjugated linoleic acid, the retinol, we're going to get choline, we're going to get omega-3 fatty acids. We're going to get a lot of these powerful nutrients that we also get in the eggs in the grass-fed butter. So do both of those things. Whenever you're using butter, get grass-fed butter and also use pasture-raised eggs. Butter is one of the best things to cook in. So it is remarkably heat stable, and a lot of those nutrients will remain active. Not all of them, but a lot of them will remain active even when you heat it. And of course, we love butter on top of different things, right? So you can actually have your grass-fed steak and you can put butter on it if you want. You can put butter on vegetables, steam up some broccoli, cauliflower, something like that, mix in some grass-fed butter. It's a great way to get the butter in your system. Extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. So particularly fresh pressed extra virgin olive oil, that is going to be really rich in polyphenols, particularly two major ones, oleocanthols and hydroxytyrosols. And these compounds are great at reducing pain and inflammation in the body, and they also help us get rid of that visceral fat. So there's also vitamin E. It's one of the best sources of vitamin E, and it's a monounsaturated fat, which is great for our metabolic rate. So I love using extra virgin olive oil. That is great to put on our meat. So a lot of times when we cook up our red meat, we cook it to the point where we're developing certain compounds like heterocyclic amines and acrylamides and things like that that are potentially carcinogenic. They cause more oxidative stress in our system. One way to buffer that is to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil to the meat after it's cooked. Now you can also marinate it in the extra virgin olive oil. I like to marinate in olive oil as well as lemon juice, and that will actually get the polyphenols as well as some vitamin C and citric acid into the meat beforehand, before you cook it, and it gives it a nice flavor. And on top of that, the marinade helps reduce the amount of harmful compounds that are produced when you cook the meat at a high temperature. So that's a great approach, and of course you can put it on afterwards as well. Put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil on the meat afterwards. Again, helps buffer the damaging effects that you might get from some of these compounds that are produced when we cook meat at a high temperature. So extra virgin olive oil, also great, of course, on salads. I put it on a lot of different things, but certainly salads, that's what most people are using it for. Apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is rich in a compound called acetic acid. And obviously it's very acidic, and it's a vinegar, right? And so this is one of the reasons why apple cider vinegar is so good for our body, is that acetic acid has actually been shown. So it's what we call a postbiotic. So it's a product that's formed, a compound that's formed from fermentation, bacterial fermentation, particularly a bacteria called Acidobacter, which really breaks down the apple juice, I guess you could say, to a form where it's called, apple cider vinegar. And so the acetic acid actually helps to reduce the glycemic impact of the food that we're consuming. What that means is when we consume food, right? Let's say you were to eat a high glycemic food like, a piece of bread, a piece of white bread or something like that. If you take a shot of apple cider vinegar, basically about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in 4 ounces of water, you do that about 10 minutes before you eat it, or even just right before you eat it, it's going to reduce the impact, the amount of blood sugar elevation that you get from consuming that food by as much as 40%. And that's also going to reduce the insulin impact, the amount of insulin your body produces. We know the root cause of visceral fat formation, this belly fat formation, is insulin resistance. Too much blood sugar, too much insulin. So anything we can take that's going to reduce the glycemic impact is going to help us burn fat more effectively for fuel and get rid of this, damaging inflammatory visceral fat. So apple cider vinegar, just drinking a little bit of that in your water before meals actually helps to activate all your digestive juices, your stomach acid, bile, pancreatic enzymes. So it helps you digest your food more effectively, and also, again, lowers the glycemic impact and the insulogenic impact of the meal that you're consuming. So amazing thing to add in. I also like ginger and bitter herbs. Bitter herbs would be anything that kind of has like a bitter, pungent flavor to it. So arugula, parsley, cilantro, right? These are considered bitter herbs, radishes. So they have this pungent type of bitteriness. And here is an acronym to remember. Bitter is good for your liver. So anything bitter actually helps stimulate this astringent or bitter flavor stimulates liver mechanisms. And the better your liver's working, the better your metabolic rate, the better you're going to process and eliminate toxins in your body, the better your microbiome health is going to be because of its bile releasing effects, and the less visceral fat you're going to form. And so ginger, you can drink ginger tea. You can actually just take a ginger root, chew on it. You can get like dry ginger and put it on food. That can be really powerful for helping stimulate the liver and helping improve your metabolic rate. And then also adding in other bitter herbs. So again, radishes, munching on some radishes, using arugula. Arugula is one of the best things you can do for a salad base because it's lower in oxalates, these harmful plant compounds, than things like spinach. And it's a bitter herb, so again, stimulates liver function. So that's a great one. Dandelion is another really good bitter herb. Parsley, you think about like a lot of, when you go to like a fancy restaurant or something, they've got parsley, right? On the side as kind of a hors d'oeuvre to consume with the meal. Well, parsley's been known for, millennia. So ancient tribes used to use parsley with all of their meals. Why? Because they understood that it improved digestive health. They didn't fully understand all the mechanisms, but we know that it supports liver health, supports bile flow, stomach acid, pancreatic enzyme production. So it's another great one to use. Number 6 is wild-caught salmon. Wild-caught salmon is very rich in omega-3 fats, particularly the long-chain omega-3s, EPA and DHA, which are known to reduce inflammation in the body, support better metabolic health, and reduce visceral fat and inflammation in the system. So it's also very rich in an antioxidant compound called astaxanthin. And astaxanthin is what actually gives salmon their pink color. Now, farm-raised salmon are typically consuming like some sort of a genetically modified corn. They're giving them all these different grains, and they're not actually developing the pink color because wild-caught salmon gets the astaxanthin from pink algae, red algae that it's consuming. It uptakes it from the algae, and then that gets into its system where it becomes this incredible antioxidant. So there's a big difference between your farm-raised salmon and your wild-caught, particularly wild-caught Alaskan salmon. That's usually what I'm looking for. I want it from cold water regions. It's going to have better mitochondrial health, more astaxanthin, more long-chain omega-3s in it. And so that's what we're looking for. Wild-caught salmon, amazing for fat burning. When you think about salmon, they're able to swim upstream against the rapids and jump like literally up to 10 feet out of the water. That's an incredible amount of cellular energy production in order to get there, in order to be able to do that. And the 2 compounds that are most credited with its ability to buffer oxidative stress and really produce this rampant amount of cellular energy are the omega-3 fatty acids, making the cell membrane very fluid and less inflammatory, supporting the mitochondrial membrane within all the cells of the fish, and then astaxanthin for its ability to buffer the oxidative stress that it's producing while it's generating all that energy. So we get that when we're consuming the salmon. Number 7 is avocados. Avocados are amazing for the body, very rich in lutein and zeaxanthin, very rich in different types of prebiotic fibers that support our microbiome. It's a healthy monounsaturated fat that's in avocados that supports metabolic health and stimulates the mitochondria to burn fat more effectively for fuel. So we love avocados. And then your bonus one that I included in here is MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides. Now, when we think about fatty acids, we think about short chain fatty acids. They're very good for metabolic health. I didn't even talk about those. We're going to find those in our pasture-raised eggs, our grass-fed butter, very rich in short chain fatty acids that support our microbiome, reduce inflammation, support metabolic health. We also have medium chain triglycerides, and then we have long chain triglycerides. The best ones for metabolic health are the short and the medium chain fats. Medium chain triglycerides, we find a lot of those in grass-fed dairy. So if you're consuming yogurt, like grass-fed yogurt or pasture-raised yogurt, that's another great source. We also find them in coconut oil or coconut oil products. Now, the issue with coconut oil is it's really only about 50% MCTs, medium chain triglycerides, which is still good, right? But we can concentrate the MCTs and create something called MCT oil, where we're particularly getting C8, so 8 carbon length, medium chain triglyceride, and a 10 carbon chain medium chain triglyceride. That's called capric and caprylic acid. Those ones have been the most well studied for turning on your mitochondria, increasing energy production. They actually turn into something called ketones when you ingest them, and they teach your cells to burn fat more effectively for fuel. They keep insulin very, very stable. They shut down cravings in your body, and they actually reduce inflammation all throughout your body, including in your brain. So MCTs can be amazing for the body and great for helping you burn belly fat and get rid of that dangerous and harmful inflammatory visceral fat. So these are the kind of foods we want to be consuming. Obviously, we want to reduce sugar and grain consumption. We want to get rid of seed oils, all of our different seed oils, corn oil, soybean, safflower, cottonseed, peanut oil. We want to get rid of those, canola oil, get rid of those things. High sources of fructose, like high fructose corn syrup, sugars, processed foods, we want to get rid of those. And we want to minimize the amount of toxins coming in. So that's why we want to do as much as we can. We want to go organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised, so we can get the most nutrients and the least amount of toxins. When we do that, along with prioritizing these foods right here in our diet, we're going to burn that extra belly fat. We're going to reduce inflammation in our body. We're going to look and feel at our best. So hopefully this was a helpful training for you guys. Please share it with anybody that you know and that you care about. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, now is the time to do that. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell button if you're listening to this on YouTube. That way you get notified whenever I put up a new video, so you never miss one of these important trainings. Thanks so much for doing that. Thank you for being a part of our community, and we'll see you in a future video.